Hello, greetings everyone. I guess you are ready for this particular lesson, and this is a wonderful topic that I want us to look at. It is called breathing and gaseous exchange in fish. So even as I teach you this particular topic, I guess you've got a book where you are, not a piece of paper, but a book where you are writing down everything that I'm going to be teaching you, everything that I'm going to be explaining and writing in this particular lesson. Most of you get to ask me questions, sir, waiting for the notes. When are you going to give us the notes? These are the same notes that I'm giving. So I make sure that even as I'm teaching, I'm very slow in my writing and my explanation so that we try to get the concept. The key thing here is knowing the concept. So when you are talking about breathing in fish, you need to understand the first point you need to note is that a fish breathe using what? So fish breathe using what we get to call, using the what? Using the gills. So it gets to breathe using the what? The gills. These gills now get to allow. So the gills do what? We say which does what? Which allow. I'm going to say which does what? Which allow them. I'll say which allow them to do what? To extract. Which allow them to extract oxygen from where? From water, and what? And expel. I will say, and it does what? And it gets to expel what? Carbon dioxide. This is the first point you need to understand. When we are talking about breathing, fish is going to breathe using the gills. These gills gets to allow the extraction of carbon dioxide, extraction of oxygen from the waters, and gets to expel what we get to call carbon dioxide. So this is the first point that you have to know. I guess even as I'm teaching you, you are also writing down notes in your book. The key thing is writing down the notes and what I'm explaining, getting the concept. That is the whole idea. This is the reason why I'm teaching you. So I want you to know that gaseous exchange in a bonefish occurs across a surface that we get to call the what? We get to call the gills. So you discover that the gills of, I'm going to say that gills of what? I'm going to say that gills of bonefish. So gills of bonefish are what? Are attached. Gets to be what? Gets to be attached. They get to be attached to what? To the structure. I'll say to the structure. Gets to be attached to the structure that we get to call what? We get to call the gills. This is what you need to understand. Now, if we look at a structure, if we look at the structure, so let us look at the structure. Let me say structure of what? I'm going to say structure of bone. So I'll say structure of what? Structure of bonefish. Structure of bonefish gill. So when we look at this structure, the way it is like this. I guess most of you have even seen it. Something that is like this. It is like this. This is how it is. Have you seen? It is like this. This is how it is. Then we've got these things that gets to be like that. Have you seen? We've got those things that gets to be in that form like that. We've got those things that. So this is the bonefish gill. Have you seen the bonefish what? Bonefish gill. It has got these two things. These two things that gets to be like that. So this is just to give you an idea of what I'm trying to talk about. These things you are able to see, these ones, are what we get to call the what? Are what we get to call the gill filament. So these ones are called the gill what? Filament. Then this thing that is here, have you seen this part here, this middle part here, this part, the middle part there? What do we call that part? What is the name given to this part? So this part that is inside there, we get to call it the gill bar. Have you seen? This is a what? This is a gill bar. Then these things that are here, I guess you are able to see these structures. These two things that are here. These ones, we get to call them what? Gill rackers. I'll say gill what? Rackers. This is the name that is given to these ones. So this is just a structure of a bonefish gill that a person needs to understand. So this is a structure that you have to understand. When I'm explaining, I'm giving you time so that you write down the notes. So I want us to be moving together and getting the concept. Even as you are writing down the notes, you are also getting the concept. That's the reason why I'm not even that fast. I'm explaining so that you may try to get these things. So we've got this part. Have you seen the way it is? It is like this. This is how it is. Have you seen? It is like this. So these ones get to be like that. This is a bonefish gill. This is a gill of the bonefish. So now, the way they are, this is the gill filament. This is the gill bar. The thing that is inside there. Then we've got the gill rackers. Now, what we are supposed to do here, we need now to understand what is the function or the purpose of the gill filament. The purpose of the gill filament. Because they may ask you, what role does this gill filament get to play? You ask yourself, okay, for me to get this or for me to understand this, there's something that I need to know. You need to know that the function of the gill filaments is to facilitate the exchange of gases. So the function, let me do this. I guess you've written down that. Let me try to make it simple. So let me do this. So let me start with the what? Let me start with the gill filament. Let me start with the gill filament. So I'll say gill what? Gill filament. What is the function of the gill filament? So like I've told you, the function of the gill filament, have you seen the way these things are? Have you seen the way they are like this? So the function of this is to facilitate. So the function is to do what? The function is to facilitate the gaseous exchange. To facilitate the what? To facilitate the gaseous exchange. So I'll just say to facilitate the exchange. The exchange of what? The exchange of gases. Gets to facilitate the exchange of what? The exchange of gases. So the exchange of gases, these gases that we are talking about are the oxygen and carbon dioxide. So the gases that we are talking about that are being facilitated by the gill filament is the oxygen and the carbon dioxide. Between what we say, between what we get to call between the waters and what? Between the water and the fish blood. And the fish what? Blood. This is something that you are supposed to get. So if I tell you what is the function of the gill filament, you are supposed to tell me their function is just to facilitate the exchange of gases. The gases that we are talking about are these two, oxygen and carbon dioxide, between the water and the what? And the fish's blood. So this is something that you need to get. We now go to these things that I said. So this is the first one. So I will say this is the first one that we need to know. Secondly, I'm going to look at what we get to call now the gill rackers. So I say the gill what? The gill rackers. What is the function of these gill rackers? So I'm telling you to say the function of the gill rackers, these ones. What is the function of these? The function is just to do what? The function is to filter. So I'll say to do what? Is to filter. I'll say the function is to get to filter food what? Food particles. It gets to filter food particles from what? From water. So I'll say from from water, it gets to filter food particles from water. You should be writing this in full. This is water. So the function of these ones, in fact, they've got two functions. The first one is the part that we get to call the feeding part. So discover that this feeding part is where they get to filter some food particles from the waters. And another function, which is a protective function. So a protective function now is that what they get to do, these ones, is that they are going to protect or they are going to prevent large particles from entering the gill chamber. So they are going to do what? I would say they prevent. They get to do what? They prevent large, I would say they get to prevent large what? Large particles. They get to prevent large particles from what? From entering, I would say, from what? From entering the gill chamber. From entering the gill chamber. So this is what you need to get. So we've got two functions. The first function is the feeding part, where they get to filter food particles from water. You discover that they trap some organisms as water flows into the gills. So they are going to do what? They are going to trap some small organisms as water enters over the water, or as water flows over the gills. And the protective function of these gill rackers is that they prevent large particles from entering the gill chamber. So these are the two functions. If you find a question in an exam, you must be able to answer that particular question. So I guess we are moving together and we are able to see how these things happen. How about this one? So you write it down. So I'm going to write it here due to space. This one is the what? The gill bar. Its function is very simple. As you can see, it is in between the what? The gill rackers and the gill filament. So what is the function of the gill bar? So the gill bar just provides the structural support. So it does what? Its function is just to provide. So say provide what? Structural. It gets to provide the structural what? Structural support. So I'll say structural support. Structural support to the what? To the gill, to the gills. I will say to the what? To the gills. Apart from the gills, it also a standard support for the gill rackers and the gill filament. So I'll just say to the what? To the gills. And make sure that these ones, especially the gill rackers, are in place. So it's make sure that these two gill rackers and the gill filaments are in their position. So it also acts as support. It gets to balance on these two things. So this is something that is not so difficult to understand. I guess you are also writing down the notes. This is how I get to teach. These are summarized notes that you need to get. So I want you to know this, and I want you to understand what I'm teaching. Even as I'm teaching you, you are also writing down certain notes. Let us now look at, since we are looking at breathing and the gaseous exchange, how does a fish take in this same air and gets to rate the same air to come out? How does this whole process get to happen? So we now go to what we get to call what? Inspiration. I guess you know what inspiration is. Under this same topic, so I want us to look at the inspirations now. So we now move to that part. So I guess we are able to see what is here. I guess we are able to understand. So let us move now to that part. Okay, so this is visible enough, and I guess you are able to hear me. I'm taking time to explain. Like you know, it may not be possible for you to ask a question, but if possible, you can just note down certain questions that you are having even as I'm teaching, such that when I give you work, when submitting, that's when you tell me that, okay, sir, the question that you're having, you ask me so that I may respond to that. The good part with these lessons is that we get to move very fast and we get to cover a lot of things compared to live sessions where once I start teaching, this one is saying the network is bad, this one is saying this other thing. So I saw it fit that we get to have a recorded session where I'm taking time to explain these things. So we look at what? We look at inspirations. How does it happen? So inspirations under what? This. How does a fish take in oxygen, and how does it get to release carbon dioxide? So what we are going to do now, we need to understand that I'm going to give you 3 steps that you are supposed to note. I'm going to give you 3 stages that you have to understand under this part. The first one, if I tell you to say, explain the breathing and gaseous exchange under inspiration in fish, you need to know that the first thing that gets to happen is that the fish gets to do what? You need to understand that the fish opens, I'll say the fish opens its what? Its mouth. Once the fish opens its mouth, allowing what? Once it opens its mouth, it is going to allow water to do what? Water to flow in. It's going to allow water to flow in. So this is the first part that you need to know. Water is going to flow in. It is going to flow in the moment the fish opens its mouth. Then the second thing that you are supposed to know is that once the fish opens its mouth, the pressure in the vocal cavity gets to decrease, allowing or drawing water in. So you discover that I'm telling you to say that once the fish opens its mouth, you are going to discover that the pressure, this is the point now, the pressure in the what? Vocal cavity. So the pressure in the vocal cavity, decreases. So it is going to do what? It is going to decrease, drawing water in. So allowing water to enter now, drawing water in. So this is what we need to know. After understanding this part, then you have to know that now the gill covers, they are what we get to call the gill covers. These gill covers are sometimes called the what? Operculum. So I will say operculum. So it is just one and the same, the operculum. So these are operculum now, the gill covers. What will happen is that these ones, they will do what? They will remain what? They will remain closed. They are going to do what? They are going to remain what? They are going to remain closed. So I'll say they will remain closed. Once these ones remain closed, we are now going to discover that the reason why it gets to remain closed, it gets to do what? It gets to create pressure. So it gets to do what? It gets to, I will say, creating pressure. So I'm going to say that it does what? Creating what? Creating pressure. So creating pressure that facilitate now. Creating pressure that does what? That facilitate. Creating pressure that facilitates water movement. That's facilitate water what? Water movement, gets to facilitate the water movement over the what? Over the gills. Over the what? Over the gills. This is what gets to happen. So this is the inspiration that gets to take place. One, the fish opens its mouth, allowing water to flow in. Then the pressure in the vocal cavity decreases, drawing water in. Then you need to get and understand the last step is now where the gill cover now remains closed. And once it has remained closed, it gets to create pressure now that gets to facilitate water movement over the what? Over the gills. So this is what happens when you breathe, when the fish gets to breathe in. Singer. So when a fish breathe in like that. So before we go in further, we are going to understand that a fish gets to do what? When we are talking about this, you discover that the fish gets to, let me say, water, as water passes over the gills, you discover that oxygen diffuses from water into the fish. Have you seen? Into water to fish, which is oxygen. And carbon dioxide will diffuse now from the bloodstream into the waters. This process now is what I get to call gas exchange process in fish. This is now the what we get to call the what? Gas exchange. So I'm calling it the gas exchange in what? In fish. This is the gas exchange in fish. So gaseous exchange in what? In fish. The process. So this is now the full process. I would say full what? Full process. Just to make it short and easy for you to understand, the first thing you need to note is that as water passes over, the what? The gill. So I would say passes over the gill filament. When it passes over the gill filament, I guess you're even able to picture, not even picturing, you are even able to see the gill filament. I told you those gill filament that gets to do what? That gets to facilitate the gaseous exchange between the water and the fish's bloodstream. So this one, as water passes over the gill filament, when it passes over that gill filament, you are going to discover that oxygen now is going to do what? Diffuse. So we say oxygen diffuses from where? From water. So it diffuses from water into what? Into the fish. So into the fish blood stream. So into the what? Fish blood stream. This is what gets to happen. This is what you are going to observe. So when it goes into the blood stream like that, and we've got now the carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide now gets to do what? Carbon dioxide now diffuses from where? From now the bloodstream. From where? From the bloodstream. So it is going to diffuse from the what? From the bloodstream. When it diffuses from the bloodstream and goes into the what? Into the water. From bloodstream into the what? Into the water. This is what gets to happen. This is gaseous exchange in fish. So you are just explaining what diffuses from what to what. And here we've explained to say that a fish which when the water passes over the gill filament, oxygen diffuses from the waters into the fish's bloodstream, and carbon dioxide diffuses from bloodstream into the water. So when I tell you to say explain the whole process of inspiration and expiration of gases or breathing in fish, you get to explain all these things from inspiration and into the last one that we get to call the expiration. So expiration now where some gases get to move out. So we move now to expiration. So we move to another process we are calling what? Expiration. I want you to understand this and I want you to get this. So move to what? Expiration now, which is also where we get to, gases get to move out now. So this is where we have gone to. So now this, when expiration is taking place, you are going to observe that the fish does what? The fish closes. You need to understand that the fish closes its mouth. You need to get that the fish closes its mouth. Why is it closing its mouth? So that it can increase. So we say increasing what? We say increasing pressure. So I'm going to say that increasing pressure in the what? Vocal cavity. In the vocal cavity, increasing pressure in the what? In the vocal cavity. And the gill covers, the moment pressure has been increased in this vocal cavity, you are going to discover that the gill covers now. The gill what? The gill covers now gets to open. So the gill covers opens, allowing what? I'm going to say allowing water to be what? Allowing water to be expelled. Allowing water to be what? To be expelled over the what? Over the gills. Over the gills. This is what gets to happen. Allowing water now to be expelled over the what? Over the gills. This is what is happening. Once this has happened, you discover that this process now of the fish closing its mouth and increasing the vocal cavity where the gill covers opens up, the whole process is to push out carbon dioxide rich water outside. Have you seen? So where now the carbon dioxide is pushed outside. So this whole process is pushing. So this is to what? This is to allow. I'm going to say that this is to allow carbon dioxide move out, or carbon dioxide out of the what? Out of the fish. So this is the whole essence of that. Have you seen that the expiration is too simple? So if I tell you, explain the expiration process in fish, you just explain this part. Inspiration, I have given you, so you are able to explain. So if I now tell you that explain how a fish gets to breathe, so you get to put now the inspiration and expiration together, where you start by explaining to me, you start telling me to say, okay, when the fish opens its mouth, water gets to flow in, and the pressure in the vocal cavity increases, whereby water gets to enter now the fish, and the gill cover, they will remain closed so that they get to create pressure that facilitates water movement over the gills. And the fish, when the fish is about to expire, when it is expiring, you discover when it is expiring carbon dioxide, the fish closes its mouth, increasing what? Increasing pressure in the vocal cavity. If you want, you can also include the gaseous exchange in the middle there, where the moment you're done with inspiration, you explain the gaseous exchange, you now go to expiration. You make a nice paragraph. So I was just showing you how these things get to happen, and now you need to understand them. This is something that is so good, something that we need to get. When I tell you, okay, let's answer these questions, you are able to answer them. One thing I've noticed, if you see a question that a paragraph form, those that come from section B, paper 2 biology, you discover that they are going to specify, explain or describe. You are not supposed to write in points form. You make a nice paragraph there. I guess even on top it is written that essay form or paragraph form. So I don't want anyone to make a mistake again. When a question comes like that, just write in a paragraph form and make sure that you develop that thing of writing up a nice paragraphs, not something that you start from pa. No, I want excellent paragraphs where they are illustrating or telling me to say, okay, the person has understood the concept. So this is what you are supposed to get. This is something that I want you to understand. Let us now go to gaseous exchange in plants now. Let us go to gaseous exchange in plants. So we now move to gaseous exchange in what? In plants. So let us now go to gaseous exchange. I guess you are able to hear me clearly, and we are writing down the notes. These are the notes. There are no any other notes that I'm going to give. These are the notes. If I share a PDF, I just want you to study through and understand some concepts. So I'll share a document that will make us understand this even more. So we look at the gaseous what? Gaseous exchange. So I'll say a gaseous exchange in what? In plants. So gaseous exchange in what? In plants. This is the last thing that we are doing. So I want your total attention now. This is the last thing. I guess you've gotten everything that I was explaining. Like we need to cover a lot of things this month, and we need to make sure that we keep on pushing and studying. The key thing and the beautiful thing is studying. Once you are studying, you are making your life easy, not whereby people start rushing when there is no time. You start doing this, start doing that, you discover that you get to kill your own time. So the best thing is to start studying now. So I want you to understand that gaseous exchange in plants occurs. So it gets to do what? It gets to occur in the what? In the spongy. I'll say in the spongy layer. In the spongy what? In the spongy area of a leaf. So of the what? I'll say of the leaf. This is what I'm going to say. Of the leaf. That is where now a gaseous exchange gets to take place from. So when photosynthesis is taking place during daytime, so when photosynthesis is taking place, so I'm going to say that when what? When photosynthesis is taking place. When photosynthesis is taking place. So when photosynthesis is what? Is taking place. During what? During daytime. So during what? During daytime. You have to understand that during daytime, plants will do what? Plants take in what? Plants take in, I'm going to say, plants get to take in what? Plants gets to take in, we say, plants take in oxygen and gets to release what we get to call. So I guess you've heard what I've told you. During daytime, they take in what? Carbon dioxide and release what? They get once the process is done and it gets to release what we get to call what? They get to release now the oxygen. I want you to be writing these in words, not like this. I'm writing like this so that I get to summarize what I'm explaining. So I'm telling you to say that when photosynthesis is taking place during daytime, plants will take in what? Will take in carbon dioxide and gets to release what? Gets to release oxygen. So when this is happening, you also need to understand that respiration also gets to take place. So when we go at night, so I will say that when respiration, so I'm going to say that when respiration is the only process, so when respiration is the only what? When it is the only process taking place. So if it is the only process that is what? Taking place, if it is the only process that is taking place, which is at what? At night. So you are going to discover that the plant will do what? The plant, so I'm going to say that the plant take in what? The plant take in oxygen. They're going to take in oxygen and release. They get to do what? They get to release carbon dioxide. This is what gets to happen at night. This is the reason why they don't even advise sleeping in the same room where there are plants like that, because at night plants take in oxygen, like you throughout continuously you take in what? Oxygen and gets to release what? Carbon dioxide. So at night the same process gets to happen. So you are taking in oxygen, even plants are taking in oxygen. Releasing carbon dioxide, they're also releasing carbon. So you get to fight over the what? The air that is present in the room. So that is the reason why it is not advisable. So this can be represented by putting up a simple diagram. where you get to have these two things that are taking place. That is something that is not that difficult to get and understand. As long as you've gotten the point and everything that I've said here, everything is what? Everything is clear. Now, they may ask you a question to say, explain the whole process of gaseous exchange in plants. So you may find such a question in an exam where they're telling you to say, explain the whole process of gaseous exchange. How can you explain that? So I'm going to say explanation now. I'm going to say this is what explanation. How you can now explain the whole process of what gaseous exchange. How can you now explain this whole process of a gaseous exchange? So you need to note that when we are talking about, so we start now by explaining, by saying that the gaseous exchange in plants. So you start, I'm giving you these things so that you can get some ideas. This is how I get to explain if questions are to come in an exam. So you start by explaining to say that gaseous exchange. You start by explaining to say gaseous what? A gaseous exchange. You say gaseous exchange in plants. Start a nice paragraph. Gaseous exchange we are talking about plants, isn't it? Occur, you say occur, through what? Through through some small opening. Through some what? Small opening. These small openings are called what? Small openings called stomata. So you get to call them what? Stomatas. These stomata, just get to call them stomata. So you discover that this same thing, the part that is called stomata, which does what? You say here, you put a comma, then you say which regulate. So we are going to say that which does what? Which regulate the intake. Which regulate the intake of what? Intake of carbon dioxide and release of oxygen. Release of oxygen, you are supposed to be writing these words in full. And release of what? Release of oxygen during what? During photosynthesis. So during what? Photosynthesis. This is the photosynthesis, so you can finish it. During what? During photosynthesis that is occurring during daytime. So photosynthesis in brackets, you put what? Daytime. So even the person that is reading will be able to get, okay, so this was happening during what? During daytime. At night, so you discover that during so this is about the daytime and everything. So this is explaining the whole process of photosynthesis. So you discover that plants gets to absorb what? They absorb oxygen to produce glucose and release oxygen as byproduct. This is photosynthesis. What is photosynthesis? We know that, okay, we get to say the process by which water gets to combine with what? Carbon dioxide, isn't it? Then we get to produce glucose plus oxygen, and there are some form of energy that gets to be released. Now, if we get to involve in respiration, so this whole process that is happening during daytime, you discover that plants, so you say plants absorb what? Plants get to absorb carbon dioxide. So they are going to absorb carbon dioxide to produce. So they are going to absorb carbon dioxide to produce what? To produce, I'm going to say to produce glucose. Don't know if this is visible. Okay. To produce what? To produce glucose and release what? And release, I'm going to say, and release what we get to call oxygen as what? Byproducts. So we say as what? Byproducts. This is what gets to happen. You should not only end here, you proceed, you explain the whole process. So this is just a nice paragraph that I'd written so that you get to see how I explain. and you conclude by saying at night. What takes place at night is the respiration, isn't it? So after you write everything here, this is just a continuation. So it is just a continuation. You say, okay, you tell them that at night, you say at night, respiration takes place. At night, respiration takes place. Say, okay, respiration does what? Takes place. Say, respiration takes place where the plant. Now, where the what? Where the plant, you say, where the plant take in what? Where the plant take in oxygen and I will say oxygen to do what? To break down what? It takes in oxygen now to break down what? To break down the glucose energy now. The glucose, so break down the glucose for energy purposes. In the process, releasing what? In the process, what is being released? Releasing carbon dioxide. Supposed to be writing this in full. So releasing what? Carbon dioxide. So this is what gets to happen. And this is what we need to know. I guess you've seen this, and no one should even face challenges if you get to encounter such questions in an exam. I don't expect anyone to fail these questions. So no one should even fail these questions. We need to make sure that we are able to answer such questions. We are able to explain them even in an exam. So I don't expect you people to fail such questions. Okay, explain gaseous exchange in fish, in plants, in people. You should not even fail. So this marks the end of this particular topic. Next time when we start, we are starting a topic called excretion. That is a topic that we are starting. And before we start that particular topic, I would love it that we maybe do a test. We see if we've understood, but I'm going to communicate. I'm not saying in my next lesson I'll communicate. Let's just make sure that we keep studying, we keep preparing for our exams. This I won't lie to you. Biology is very bulky, and for you to do better in biology, you just need to be studying. Because I can tell you that gaseous exchange comes in an exam. We've got papers that where gaseous exchange did not come. I can tell you to say, okay, if you study the bones, okay, a topic will come in an exam. We've got past paper questions where bones did not come. The only topics that are known, we've got genetics, cells, those ones, it's a must. We get to find questions on those topics. So I will keep telling you, let's just make sure that we are studying. These same summarized notes that I'm giving you are the ones that you are supposed to be studying. Stay committed and serious. Everything will just be simple. So as long as you are able to understand, you discover that even the way I get to teach biology is different to these other subjects. Because these ones require much practice. But for biology, we get to cruise. We cover a lot of things. And I know we've got some pending exercises that we've not done. We are going to revise through them and we are going to know them. For biology, I know that if I tell you what is respiration, if you fail, I know that, okay, you are able to do some research and try to understand. So what I can tell you is that let's put in effort. When you fail a question, you can try to do some research. Not when I give you an exercise. When you fail, I've marked you failed. You try to do some research, okay, on the internet. You you try to research like that. That's how we get to improve. This is not mathematics where you start solving like that. No, this thing is very simple and it takes your love for biology. I love biology so much. Even the time I was in secondary, I used to study this like no man's business. So let's make sure that we are studying even as we get to study. We make sure that we are studying. So this is where we end from. And I guess you've understood this I'm going to give you just a simple exercise which is based on what we've covered in this particular lesson, and I don't expect anyone to fail. And remember, don't do a research. Don't go on the internet to start Googling. You are kidding yourself. To me, you are going to be, you are a smart person, not knowing that you are kidding yourself. So let's just make sure that we are honest even to ourselves. When I give you an exercise, before searching on the internet, submit. When I mark you wrong or correct, that's when you go further and research. That way, you are helping your mind improve academically. You are not destroying your mind. So let's move and work together. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful night.